Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Live action.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, friends and neighbors. Time once again for the Cowboys of the Osage podcast with your host, Jimbo Snively and Cody Garnett. Now let's sing a little bit about it. Cowboys of the Osage, riding once again. Always got some time for a friend. And here they are, the Cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, and now Saucy Calf, traditional Native American food, all located right here in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me, Mr. Rodeo Historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Good morning, Jimbo. Who are we talking to today?
Hey, Cody, boy, it's just another great day in the Osage. And Cody, before we get started, I want to mention, you remember the White family that came through here? They were going to the East Coast from the West Coast.
Yes, sir.
And they're in Flippin, Arkansas now, and they're still making their way to the East Coast. But if there's any of our podcast fans out there that listen to this, if you can help them along the way, give them a place to sleep, bed their horses down or whatever on the way. But they're in Flippin, Arkansas right now. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
I bet it's flipping hot over there.
I bet it is too.
August in Flippin, Arkansas.
Yeah. Anyway, Cody, we've got Mr. Art Arnold with us today. And Art, the 10 times national finalist team roper. He was the world's champion in 1968. 9 times as a header, I think, and once as a heeler. And he's in the latest class of the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. He just went in just a couple months ago. And we're going to get into all that. And his dad is Carl Arnold, who was a great old steer roper back in the day, you know, that everybody's heard of. But anyway, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of team roping and roping history here. So, Art, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Man, what was it like to be inducted into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame?
I've been asked that quite a bit, and I don't know how you put it in words, but the only way I can say is looking at the people that and the names that are in there that I'm in there now too with. Right. Got to be about the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. How'd you get the news? They just call you up one day and tell you?
Yeah, about probably a month before, yeah.
And
I found out after the fact that some of my better friends had been trying to get it done for quite a while. I had no idea, but
right,
they finally got her done.
Well, good, well deserved. How many team ropers are in that? Do you know?
Gosh, I was told, and I'd be wrong if I said, I guess.
But like you said, when you think about all the great cowboys that aren't in it, you know, that just makes it even that much more prestigious, you know, because...
Yes, it does. It was quite a deal. It was a lot bigger deal once we got back there and got to doing everything they wanted us to do. It's huge and well run. It's really neat.
Yeah. What all did you do? What did they have you doing?
Well, we got there Friday at noon and starting at 2:00 interview. And I think that interview will probably be where they have my stuff in the Hall of Fame. Probably, I think I'm right. They can push a button and listen to it.
Right.
It was a pretty good interview.
Yeah.
They got more out of me than I thought they could.
You have to do a little acceptance speech.
Yeah. It was really short.
Well, It's okay. And sometimes those are the best kind.
Well, yeah, I told what I just told about the Hall of Fame being in it, and how I just described it to you, and
Right.
then I thank my family, and which is led by my wife Jody. She's helped me for 63 years,
Yeah.
and then my friends are led by Donnie Kimball, which is probably the main reason I got in there. And then I thank the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame.
That's all.
That was it for me.
Oh, that's all you need to do. Thank
And
everybody.
the MC said that not only has he got fans, fast hands, he be brief, be bright, and be gone.
Yep. And Cody, just show you what kind of class went in. It was Casey of the Cowboys, Casey Fields, J.D. Yates, Blue Stone, Bull Rider, and Art Arnold were the 4 Cowboys that went in.
Oh, wow.
Pretty prestigious list.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. J.D. Yates, that's a great roper.
Yeah.
Guy can
I
rope
spent a
anything.
lot of time visiting with him. I had known him, but I'd really met him. He and I got to spend a lot of time and together there, and it was really neat.
Yeah. Huh. Sound like a great weekend. Proud of you. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. And it was a great weekend.
Where'd you grow up at, Art?
Right here in Buckeye. I've been here all my life.
Buckeye, Arizona.
Well, it's gotten bigger in the last few years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's horrible.
I think it went from just a small, like, little farming community of some kind, Jimbo, to like you can't even tell where Phoenix starts from it now. I don't think.
Right. Yep.
That's about right. Yeah, they're building warehouses all over houses. I mean, it's a big mess.
Did your dad Carl was a great steer roper? Are you old enough to remember? Did you go to some of the steer ropings with him, or was that before your time?
Yeah, some of them I don't really remember, but they talked so much about them, and I remember what they said about them. And yeah, I went to most of them
Right.
when I was a kid.
You know, Cody.
And I remember one thing he said was about the match ropings with Bob Crosby.
Uh-huh.
That was a huge deal back then.
Oh yeah.
He lost the first one, and he said that turned out to be the best thing that could have happened, because then he won the next 5.
Yeah, they roped 6 times, and he won 5 of them. Was there a lot of gambling took place on those ropings?
Oh boy, yeah. The one that he talked about so much that I can remember exactly what happened was at Clovis, New Mexico, and that was on a Sunday. He won it, and my cousin left with the horses as soon as it was over. My mother's sister lived in Tularosa, New Mexico, so he headed back over the mountain to her place. And right after he left, they come to my dad and said, "We got it rematched for tomorrow. Will you rope it?" So, well, my horses left. And he said, "If I can get them back here," yeah. They said they guaranteed all bets. The first bet would be $2,000, and of course, providing he won, he'd get 10% of all bets, and they would call everyone.
Wow.
Well, they had to wait till the cousin got to Tularosa to bring the horses back. So they had it the next day, and he won that one too. You know, people would come by and stick $100 in his pocket that would bet on him and say Fido Red or do something like that, you know.
That was a lot of money back then too.
Well, yes, and they got back to my mother's sister's place, and they just put all this money on the table, and he took $2,000 with him to bet. And when they counted that all out, they had a little over 12,000.
Boy.
So those 2 days, he won a little over 10,000, which that's in the early 40s. You can kind of mathematically that one out. It's huge.
That would have bought a lot of land around Buckeye, Arizona, wouldn't it? Back then.
Yeah, he paid his place off with it.
Well, that's the thing. Those guys, it didn't look like they were winning too much at some of those early rodeos, but money went a lot further back then, and they could put together a ranch and stuff with their winnings sometimes. Did one of those ropings, Bob, got hurt in, didn't he? And had to go to the hospital?
Yeah. He did. I'm glad you said that. I wouldn't have thought of it, but I remember Dad saying he went to the hospital to visit him. And I know everybody told my dad before when he said he was having matches with Bob, said, "Oh, he's hard to deal with. You won't get along with him." Like when he went to the hospital to visit him, Dad said, "We'll just call this one off and rematch it." And Bob told him that wasn't the deal. Said the deal was you had to bow out for some reason and you lost. So
yeah.
He said, "I lost."
Well,
he turned out really good.
Yeah, that was good of him. Well, he had a lot of wrecks, didn't he, on his horses? He was just wild, wasn't he?
Well, Jeep wreck's what killed him.
Well, I know it, but he had a lot of wrecks in the arena,
Yeah, he had quite a few. And, I remember he had a real bad leg. I don't know how that happened, but
well, I think he had a horse jerk down on him and got infected, and doctors wanted to operate or take his leg off, and he wouldn't let him, and he put some kind of manure poultice on it. And
I was going to say that, but I was afraid to.
No.
But that's exactly how I was told.
Yeah, right. And it was a terrible looking leg. I saw a picture of it years later,
Yeah.
But
seemed like he liked showing it off.
Yeah, that was kind of a badge of honor. But he earned that reputation, Wild Horse Crosby, I think.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. I remember, Cody, I've seen this on Facebook, at one of the King Merritt ropings up in Laramie. King Merritt was on his old steer horse, and little Art, I don't know how old he was, but he was out there in the arena, and King Merritt's horse was cutting him. Every time he'd run, he'd cut and get in front of him. It was kind of just putting on a show, and the crowd just loved it. Do you remember that, Art?
I sure do. He gave me $5 to do that. I thought that was all the money in the world. And at that time, I don't know, I was probably 10 years old, maybe 12. I don't, that's not for sure about how old, but I could move around good.
Yeah,
I couldn't. I know at Pendleton that next year, a bunch of them cowboys told King that was a bunch of bull. A guy could get around him. They bet lots of money. And they picked their best guy they thought they could get around him. And they didn't get around him. And the thing was, he wouldn't let him get close to me, but when they had that much money up, he didn't keep him off of them. So.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah, that's cute. I remember watching that. Pretty cool. Did your dad, how did you turn out to be a team roper? Did your dad try to make a steer roper out of you?
I roped at a few places, single steer rope, and they used to have one in Yuma in November. They had a big team roping, and for a few years they had a single steer roping along with it. I roped at that a couple of times. I went to Cheyenne once, I think, and it was too hard for me to go after that to steer opens. It was just too far away and too hard to keep a good horse working and stuff. So I stayed with the team roping.
Right. Well, you roped with your dad team roping some, didn't you? Quite a bit early on?
Yeah, the first few years that I roped with him. And
were you heeling or heading for him?
No, I headed most all of those. The only time I heeled was him and I went to the finals one year. He had trouble dollying, so he'd head in the dolly part, and I'd heel for him in the heeling part, in the dolly part.
Yeah. Huh.
We went to two. We went to
two finals.
Yeah,
Okay.
they had one. Third one they had it at Santa Maria, California, and I roped with him there. And the next one they moved it with the other events to Los Angeles, California.
Right.
Well, I never knew they had the team roping finals in Santa Maria, California.
Yeah,
Just
they
now,
moved.
Jimbo.
They moved it. They had that first one at Clayton, and then and after that, the steer ropers are all by themselves, and team ropers went somewhere else for a couple of years before they went to Dallas, I think, or Los Angeles, or wherever it was. Los Angeles. Huh. I heard that about your tying that knot. Where'd you learn that illegal knot? They made it illegal. And what was it? How did it work?
Well, a friend of my dad showed me how to tie it. There was one other guy that, when I got into it, that tied it. Billy Hamilton tied the same knot. And it was called the thief knot. And when you got through tying it, you couldn't tell it from a square knot unless you looked real close. And the only difference was the one string can come out the top at the end and one at the bottom, where a regular square knot, they can both come out at the top. And I don't know, it looked a lot faster probably than it actually was, because it was under one motion.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know, I think a lot of guys tried to tie it and wouldn't spend enough time. Anyway, give up, get disgusted and complain about it. So Dale Smith finally put an outlaw to it, and the only two guys that tied it was me and Billy Hamilton. He wind up roping with both of us. But I'll never forget the first steer I ran after it wasn't legal anymore was at Scottsdale at the rodeo. And I don't think at that time there'd never been a steer at that rodeo tied in 10 in the team time. And the first one I run we were 10-5, so it didn't bother me much.
No, it didn't slow you down much. Well, that team time was a pretty wild event, wasn't it? Did you ever see any bad wrecks in that?
Oh, yeah, you get what they call the V, get the steer drug over you pretty easy. The guy I wound up roping with most of the time in that later on, Joe Glenn, if he was going to be any different than normal, he'd just holler, look out, which very seldom happened with him.
Right. Tell us about Joe Glenn. He's quite a roper, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Before I do that, though, I'd like to tell you what happened at those first finals.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into all that.
John Bowman roped with Ted Ashworth in California.
Mm-hmm.
And John Bowman called my dad in early 1959. I don't know, it was about early in the year anyway. And we didn't even know about it. He told my dad, he said, they're going to have a national finals team roping this year. And he said, you can't dally and I can't team tie. Why don't we have our Ted rope together? And so they agreed that we would. They probably had told Ted, but they hadn't told me yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's why I roped with Ted at the first two finals. My dad and John Bowman agreed to have us do that. And I know Dad said, well, how do we know they're going to make the finals? And John Bowman said, well, I see where Art's already won 2 rodeos in Arizona. He's probably already got it made.
Yep.
And that's probably correct. So that's why I roped with Ted at those. And then back to Joe Glenn. Yeah, he won his first team roping title in 1948. And there at Clayton, he was just so cold. I mean, team roping wise,
right.
Besides what Jim Rodriguez caught him, or he had won another one then.
Yeah, Jim Rodriguez and Gene Rambo.
Yeah.
What about Gene Rambo? He was quite an all-around cowboy, wasn't he?
He could work every event. So, yeah.
Yeah. What about another guy from out there where you're from was Buckshot Sarles? I'm sure you was around him some?
Very little, but enough, and so many stories that Dad and his people about his era would talk about him. Yeah, he was something.
My grandfather said he roped horns just about as good as anybody he ever saw. He really thought a lot of his roping.
Everybody said he used a little bitty loop.
Yeah. He said he could sure enough rope horns. Well, tell us about that first national finals. How cold was it?
Well, the day we got there, it was just beautiful. I mean, you didn't even need a jacket, really.
Right.
Everybody woke up the next morning. One of them Northerners had come in there. Everybody that was going to be at the rope under were at the store trying to buy warm clothes.
Yeah.
Get out there to try to rope, and you couldn't tell who anybody was. They had on earmuffs and caps and coats. It was about the most miserable I have ever been.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people.
And my first Valley steer, I went to face my horse, and because the ground was frozen, he slipped down. Didn't bother nothing except made us a long time on it because I had to get back on him and not lose my rope.
Right.
And all that, but it was pretty horrible.
Yeah, my grandfather, he found an old Elmer Fudd looking hat that buttoned down over his ears. And
that's about what all of us had.
They said some of them cars wouldn't even run there. They was pushing them and pulling them around town there trying to get them going.
I'm sure that was right.
Jimbo's dad, he worked the chute at the first national finals.
That's what
he opened the gate.
Yeah, well, I don't really remember that, but I know, been told.
He said somebody, you didn't know that, he didn't know the team ropers like they do now. They were all from California or Arizona, and they didn't, of course, they knew Dale Smith and knew Gene Rambo and guys like that, and probably knew you, but a lot of them they didn't know. And he said one of them backed in the box and said, unchaining. And my dad looked at him. He said, I wasn't going to try. I thought that's what he said, but I wasn't going to turn him out on that. So I didn't turn him out. And that guy said, yeah, turn him out. So they told him to unchain him.
Wow.
One of them California team ropers.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, he said they built a big fire in the header's box out there.
I knew they had one right close there.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine. Your dad, was he arena director or flagman or what was he? He was doing something there.
Yeah, I guess you'd call him chute boss. He ran the chutes at Cheyenne for years. And I think that's why they got him to do it there.
Yeah. Huh. Well, he was a cold sucker, I guess. Joe said that he'd get somebody to uncinch his horse after he'd tie a steer. His hands were so cold, he didn't even want to uncinch his own horse.
I believe it.
I can't imagine. And the barrel racers, I bet that was fun for them, too.
I'm surprised I don't remember something about that, but I can't believe they could even stand up going around the barrels.
Yeah, on that froze ground. Can't imagine. And Joe said they had a pretty good covered barn that they kept their horses in, and the water in the water buckets would freeze, overnight.
Yeah.
That's how cold it was. But did you win any money out there?
Wasn't much, but didn't matter what you won. It wasn't much then. We placed a couple of times in the go-rounds. But, I don't know. We won a couple of hundred, I guess.
Yeah. The steer roping pay. My grandfather won $1,400 and I think $39 in the steer roping because he placed in several rounds, and that's a pretty good lick for 1959.
Yeah, I know. I left it up before I went back to Hall of Fame of all the ones I went to from 59 through 70, the most money won by a team roper was $1,100.
Is that right?
And I won second in the average at two different ones, and the most I ever won was 700 at one of those and 600 at the other one.
Yeah.
So, in a way, it wasn't hardly worth going to money-wise.
Right.
There were guys last year that didn't seem like a very good NFR, and they won $60,000 or $70,000, Jimbo.
Exactly.
Well, they give
yeah.
them 10,000 just for showing up. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit, I'd say.
Yes, sir.
So you rocked along there in the 60s. Who were some of your partners, Art?
Well, I was roping with my dad until, what year was that? I think it was 65, I guess. Somewhere about 62 or 3, I just had a lot of horse trouble, and I finally got a 2-year-old. We raced some horses on the ranch. I got a 2-year-old and just started training on him, and I just got him going good. I turned a good steer for my dad at Tucson, and he missed him. I didn't know all this went on. I went for Tucson, it's a long ways to the arena. Went down to get my rope off and come back, but I guess he went straight out of the back of the arena. Joe Glenn had just started roping again.
Right.
And straight to Joe and asked him if he'd rope with me. And Joe said, "You just go over and cool off. You'll be all right in a little bit." Well, he didn't get over it. So this was in February. So in March at the Phoenix Rodeo, I was roping with Joe Glenn.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people criticized me for quitting my dad, but that wasn't the way it was. But that my dad decided I need somebody better than him, but I would have never done it. But,
Right.
So
Yeah. You mentioned John Bowman there a while ago. What kind of guy was he? I've heard a lot of John Bowman stories.
No, he's from right around here, isn't he, Jimbo?
Yeah, originally. Yeah,
He's right here in Pawhuska.
Well, yeah, they had a ranch not far from here.
I didn't know about that, but
Yeah.
you know, they had that jackpot steer open in Laramie a little bit before Cheyenne.
Right.
And I don't know, I was 14 maybe, something like that. And the folks left and from Laramie and went back home. I stayed there with John around Laramie. I rode his horses every day. We had a big time. He was really great to me. And get to Cheyenne, and I was walking from the stalls there over to the arena, especially that chute 9, they call it, long ways. Here comes John leading that one horse and riding another. I can't repeat his exact words, but I can give you the gist of it. I said, "Hey, John, give me a ride." He looked at me, and I'd been with him for 2 weeks. "Hell with you, kid. I don't know you." He just kept riding.
Yeah, he was something else.
Talk about a kid. That got the best of me.
Yeah.
But later on, I knew how he was. I had to laugh at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people didn't like him, I know, but he always carried an old rifle around with him. Did you know? You remember that when he'd have a rifle with him at the rope? He was a heck of a shot, and he took a shot. Him and my Uncle Jay, Jim's older brother, he took a shot at Jay at Cheyenne, I think, one time when he's getting ready to rope. But I don't think he was trying to hit him, or he'd have hit him because he's a really good shot. But he sure shot, and the law come out there and arrested him.
Wow.
But they got into it over something. But then he let my dad, when my dad was a kid, he'd said he'd go to those roping and stuff, he'd let him shoot his rifle and stuff. So I don't know. But he was a little different of what I've always heard.
Yeah. Well, that was after that second finals that I roped with Ted. Ted called me a little while after that. He said, how about you and I roping first partners from now on? I said, well, I looked at my dad and I said, what? Told him Ted wanted to do that. And he said, well, yeah, you probably should do it. So I told Ted, yeah, I'll do that. I hung the phone up, and my dad looked at my mom and said, I guess my roping days are over. And I picked up the phone and called Ted. I said, hey, I can't do it. I told him what happened. He said, well, it's a good thing because John did the same thing. so he stayed with John, and I roped with my dad.
Yeah, well, good for you.
You said something earlier that I wanted just to catch back around on, because I don't think that, you can't do it nowadays. You said when you and your dad made the national finals together, or were roping together at the national finals, you switched ends. Was that correct?
Yes.
During the finals. So back in the day, they had the top 15 team ropers. It wasn't split into headers and heelers, and just team ropers in general. That's right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You could win money in either heading or heeling. That counts the same, where now it would be count different. But, yeah, they didn't have it. They didn't have it two. They didn't have a champion header and a champion heeler. It was just one guy.
I think it was almost maybe the 80s or early 90s before they changed that, Jimbo.
Yeah, I'm really not sure the exact year.
It wasn't that long ago. No. I mean, they had the national finals in Las Vegas, I think, before they changed it.
Right.
To a champion header or champion healers. So, but yeah, I just never heard of anybody switching ends during the national finals. So that was the first time that I'd ever actually heard that. But it makes sense because they just used to have champion team roper, not champion header, not champion healer, just champion team roper, whether you were heading or heeling. So
right. What kind of ropes did you use back then, Art? Were they nylons?
Yeah, mostly. But then, there was no rope companies or nothing. You go somewhere and find usually a coil of rope and feel of it and hope it was one that'll suit you, and you buy the whole coil and make your own.
Right. Yeah, my grandpa used to. I remember as a little kid, he'd put them in the oven. I don't know what that did, if that softened them up or what, but he'd put them in the oven.
Some it would soften, and others would make them stiff. But I think that was later on.
I remember.
Yeah, and like the F ropers, they got where they'd use them 93 strands because they wouldn't break as bad.
Mm-hmm.
I use them some in the dolly roping because, to me, I wouldn't wave it off the horns. I wasn't as apt to wave it off the horns as much as one of them.
Yeah. They were heavier, weren't they?
A little heavier, but I don't know. There was more strands to them and all that.
I remember that my grandpa would be making those ropes, and he'd throw a chain around a tree and tie one end of that rope to the tree and hook it to a ball of a car. And he'd stretch that till he spun the wheels on that car and just leave it there overnight. He couldn't break them.
Yeah. Yeah. We all did that.
Yeah.
It's crazy, Jimbo, that rope you have back here in the museum that Dick Truitt spliced together for your granddad. You can pick it up today, and it still feels pretty good. I mean, it feels about as good as anything you can go buy, really.
Right. And they didn't all feel good. You'd get a coil of rope, and it wouldn't be near as good as the next one, And if they ever found a nylon they liked, that felt good to them, they'd use them for years if they could, Yeah,
a lot of times you'd use them till they got ragged on one end. You just switch ends.
Yeah, that's what we got one here in the museum that one of my grandpa's old ropes and switched ends because they cut that ragged end off and it made it too short. And Dick Truitt spliced about a foot and a half, 2 foot on the end of it, and it's the dadgumdest splice you ever seen. Pretty neat looking. But what did you learn from your dad, Art, that stayed with you during your roping years? Anything in particular?
I think the only thing that stands out, if you didn't have a good horse, you just didn't have nothing.
Right. So. He was sure right, wasn't he?
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, that one finally trained from one of the ranch mares. That he lasted me basically through my whole rodeo part. He was a good one at that. You could go dally one on him, come back, team tie on him, which wasn't a lot of horses you could do that on.
Really?
You could even go rope a calf and win if you wanted to. I wasn't big enough hardly to rope calves most places, but
right.
I'd rope once in a while.
Huh.
And I had, after him, I didn't go really to any rodeos, not because of that, basically, just because I'd had enough of going to the rodeos. But I'd go to the local ones I could get back home from. And but I had a good horse then too. But in fact, they had a big, they called it Roar's Rope-a-Thon. They had big 10 steer there. Bill Roar put on. I won that one on him, and then Dale Smith talked me into going to Chowchilla to that big 8 steer, and him and I won that one. So,
well, he was a good. Dale Smith was a good hand, wasn't he? Rope calves, steers, everything.
Yeah.
Did you ever rope with Ben Johnson?
No. I got a good story there if you want it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I only got to go to Pendleton one time. My folks would always go because school started.
Right.
At that same time, one year we'd get home in time to go to school, so I got to go that one time. Yep. And I don't remember who it was I was with, but me and another kid was out in this big lawn in front of a motel right across from the Pendleton Roundup Rodeo Ground. We was out in this big lawn playing football, just throwing it back and forth to each other. Well, these 2 tall guys come out there. And one of them says, "Can we play with you guys?" I looked at the other one and we agreed, yeah. And this one said, "Well, I'll take Art, you take the other guy." I looked at how do you know my name? Anyway, they pulled their shirts off. They're pretty horty guys. Anyway, we played there. I bet we played there, I don't know, at least 2 hours. Well, as soon as that was over, we got done, and I told my dad about it. He said, "Well, you know who that was, don't you?" And I said, "Well, no." He said, "The one you was playing was Ben Johnson, and that other boy was playing John Dalton." So we was out there playing with 2 pretty high up guys, and we didn't even know it.
Did you say John Dalton?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a real cowboy too, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember too much about him, but
yeah, he was. He was King Merritt's son-in-law, and he was a good bulldogger, steer roper, calf roper. Won all around Pendleton at least twice, I think.
Huh.
He was a good hand, for sure.
But that not too many kids say they could played football with Ben Johnson.
No. Did you ever get to rope with Johnny Miller? Any?
I rope against him a lot.
Did what?
I rope against him a lot.
Oh, against him a lot, yeah. Never did team up with him? Any?
No, because we both really had it then.
Yeah. Right. What about that year you put it all together and won the world? Tell us how that all went down.
Well, that was pretty much, well, the year before that, my partner Joe Glenn won it, and we went to every rodeo we could get to. I think we went to 58 rodeos. And that was almost impossible to do back then because they had them in Arizona, California. Anyway, I swore up and down I'd never do that again. And so the next year I won it. Joe and I won about everything in Arizona. So we was way out in the lead. I had cattle on the desert allotment. And Joe came and helped me round them up, and towards almost the end of May. So from March to May, I never went to a rodeo, or through May. After we got everything gathered and sent out, he sat down at the house with me and said, you gotta go to California and rope. He said, you're still way out in the lead. I said, I don't want to. He said, well, you're still way out in the lead. Between him and my wife talking to me, they talked me into going. I get out there. Joe told me to go up and pay the entry fee, so I went up there. Secretary told me that the Camarillas was within $300. I come back down. I cussed old Joe out. I said, you had to know that. He said, yeah, but if I told you, you wouldn't come out here, would you? I would be right. So, I don't know. It just turned out I was so hot it didn't matter. Joe's sister got sick. He had to fly home, and Dick Pasco roped with me at a couple of rodeos, and we won one of them. And then, I don't know, just about every Arizona rodeo they had, you could enter twice at most of them. I'd bet just about placed twice at every one of them. I know at the Kingman was late August, or the end of the season. I won first and second at that one, and the Camarillas said, well, that's it. We can't catch you now. A lot of people don't know that's who I had to beat for when I won it, but they were there.
Yeah.
I know somebody say where Leo could hear him that when Arnold won the championship, he didn't really have to beat anybody.
Just the
said, well, he beat us.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Did you have a pretty good finals then?
No, I was just so far in the lead, didn't matter.
Yeah.
How big were them cattle you were team roping?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because like at all the winter rodeos in Arizona, they roped the year before bulldog and steers.
Woo!
A lot of those would probably weigh 750, for sure 650, and they were big. And California was a little bit the same, but not quite as bad, but a little bit the same.
Did you ever win Salinas?
Yes, Joe and I won Salinas in '66.
Tell us about the dally out there. I've heard some stories about you couldn't use rubber on your horn. You could use cotton. Then I heard you couldn't use anything. What was the scoop on that, Art, back then?
Well, just about the way you just said it, but to make it real, all of those years that I went, especially with Joe, there was two brothers kind of ran that rodeo, and they raised some cattle. I guess they'd get them out of Mexico, but they was all Hereford steers, and they all had horns about 6 inches each side. I mean, you looked at one, you saw them all; they were identical. And they must have fed them in a feedlot. I don't know, but they were huge. I don't know. Maybe they looked so huge just the way it was, but they'd weigh at least 650, probably more. And they'd never been roped. So the first time, and they used a really long score, like 35 foot, and they'd walk to the line. The first, then, so you just had to let them clear the line. And then the second round, they'd run, most of them would just run like the Dickens. And then third round, for sure, they'd all run like the Dickens. If you were 11, you probably was either winning a go-round or placing deep in it. Right. On those steers. And yeah, exactly. You could have cotton on your horn, and you could use rosin they'd let you do that. But that was it. And most everybody'd have to take 2 wraps on those steers.
Right.
And I know there was a Mexican guy. I think he made saddles just from Nogales. He went out there one year. He could dally on a slick horn, and there's a way they could take a wrap or 2 and then just lock it. And he had a slick horn, and a lot of them California guys got scared that those committee would see that, make everybody do it. So they went and tied a little cotton rope on his horns.
Yeah.
Have you seen them guys down in Mexico, Jimbo, where they're, I don't know, they got like 100-foot
rope,
riata, and they'll smoke their horn is what it seems like. They don't ever stop, but whoever can let smoke out for the longest. I ain't figured it all out yet.
I haven't either.
It's pretty wild looking deal. I don't know how they don't burn their hand completely in two.
I've seen that. That's wild.
Yeah, those guys were excellent.
But yeah, there's some ropesmiths down there. I can't even swing one of them riatas, and they can make one of them sing down there. Just like it amazes me, honestly, how they do it.
Like that Ricardo, that was before I really roped much with my dad. I went to that big team roping that they had at Yuma in November. And I was roping I went to a few amateur rodeos there in Arizona, and Carl Woodson was a guy that was healing for me at some of them, and so he roped with me at Yuma. And Jack Branham got Ricardo to rope my second partner there. I was roping muleys, Hereford muleys. Well, that's what I roped at home all the time, so that was good for me. And anyway, Carl and I won that, and Ricardo and I won second. So I was about 18. I thought, man, I had all the money in the world.
Used to be all. Go ahead.
No, that was just.
Yeah. Used to be all the. Yeah, I imagine. All the ropers and stuff were from California and Arizona, and most of the team ropers too. When did that all change, and what changed it, Art?
Well, it didn't really change much till they made it a standard event. I think that's 2006. A little before that, they had it at Cheyenne and Pendleton a little before 2006, I believe. But before that, they never had team roping at Pendleton or Cheyenne, either one. I'm not sure the first year they had it, but I think it was a little before they made it a standard event.
Yeah. But it had spread across the country, or at least it had come to Oklahoma way before that. You know, there was, back in the 70s, there was a lot of people. I think that's about when it really hit here, you know, just everybody went team roping crazy a little bit.
Then the 80s, Jimbo, they, the number classification came on, and which evened it up, supposedly, for everybody. So you could rope against people that at your own skill level.
Right. What do you think about the team roping today, Art?
Well, it's just amazing how there's 2 guys that made the team roping better over the years. One was Bob Feist with his paper there in California, and he promoted team roping everywhere, and that's what the Feist Invitational team roping got huge. That was his goal, to get something like that. But the other guy started with the United States team roping, Denny Gentry, and then peeled over later into the World Series of team roping. Those, by Denny Gentry getting the handicap numbers done as good as you could probably do it, that's probably the biggest thing right there.
Yeah. What do you think about the throws some of them headers are taking?
Well, their excuse for outlawing the crossfire, having the crossfire rule in, didn't show any horsemanship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, to me, as quick as the header's got to throw, there's absolutely no horsemanship there either.
Right.
But that's what you got to do if you're going to win. So that's just the way it is.
I'm not sure some of those horses even see the steer. They're ducking off so quick.
Yeah, I know. There at that Rose Ropathon one time, something happened to their barrier system, so you couldn't turn the steer till after he went past the barrel that was out there. Well, I was riding the young horse, and I got out a little late on one for some reason, and I barely had a reach and throw when I got to the barrel, and that was as far as that horse was going. He was going around the barrel.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they had growing up everywhere, barrel ropings, before they came out with these electronic eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember at one time they had these two big fiberglass whips that they had made up that you went through somehow and started time. Kind of right when they were getting these electric eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I roped one of those one time, steer roping. Huh. Art, if you were making a Mount Rushmore of team ropers, who would you put on it? Need 4 names.
4 names.
They don't have to be guys you rope with, or they could be roping later, modern, just whatever. Whoever you think belongs on there.
Well, Jimmy Rodriguez Jr., he'd belong on it.
Yep.
And you'd have to put Gene Rambo there. I mean, him and Jimmy won everything.
Right.
And on the era that Joe Glenn had, he pretty well need to be on there. I'd have trouble with the 4th one. There'd be so many people.
I know, everybody does.
Yeah, it's a toughie.
I mean, how do you leave the Leo Camarillo off, or some of those other guys? It's just hard. To pick 4.
Leo and Gerald both would probably need to, but I was trying to pick another header, which I'm having trouble doing. So yeah, you'd have to put Leo there, I guess.
Well, it's just hard to put one on there and leave off some other great ones. But
yeah, it is exactly. That's that's what I did it with my speech at the Hall of Fame. That's why I just mentioned my wife as a family, because if you don't stop right there,
right, you'll leave somebody off.
Somebody else is going to get ticked off at you.
Hurt somebody's feelings.
Same way with the friends. So
yeah,
I just picked one each. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jimmy and Gene Rambo and Joe Glenn and Leo Camarillo.
That's a pretty good list.
You ever go up there in Wickenburg, see what's going on up there? I guess that's the new team roping capital of the world.
Yeah. My daughter still ropes a little once in a while, and she's going up there. I'll go up with her every once in a while.
When did you retire, Art? Was it hard? Was it hard to do?
No, I'd been wanting to. I had my daughter, my son put on a team roping, a round robin team roping for me at my 70th birthday. Was 2010. They got a equestrian center here in Buckeye now, and they had it there. I was healing then. I about quit. I'd quit heading because I didn't want to pay enough money to have a good horse. I could find some old heel horses or a young one. Anyway, I happened to win the round robin on the healing side, and I thought, you know what? If I'd quit right now, I'd quit a winner. I'm just going to quit right now.
Well, not very many guys can say that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, somebody asked, well, what'd you do? Invite all the guys you could beat so you could win it? Yeah. I don't know if you're
Well, heck yeah. It's your birthday party. You can do whatever you want.
I'm sure if you keep up on any of the team opens, you see this older guy named Earl Higgins where he wins a lot of money at these World Series Open.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, he was there. Dan Nairmore was at that time really hot going with them kind of open, so he was there. So yeah, we invited everybody I could beat. So.
It's funny.
Well, heck, you got anything else for him, Jimbo?
Well, I just really appreciate him jumping on here with us and going back in the old team roping history. I think people really appreciate this podcast. I know I do. And we just really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us, Art.
Well, thank you. I hope I did some good, but I always think of stuff I should have said right back.
You know, we did learn a few things today that I had no idea about. I mean, I didn't know that once you started roping at the NFR one way that you could change. I just thought, I took it for granted if you started in heading, you had to finish it heading, but no, you could switch halfway through or however. I guess you could switch any way you wanted, couldn't you?
Well, yeah, I don't know if anybody but me and my dad ever did it, but there was no reason not to. Because it didn't matter where you won the money; it was just team roping. After they changed it to a header and heeler both, well, then it would be to your disadvantage to change because it'd only count one way or the other. So the money would only count as a header or if you're heading or heeling if you're heeling. So
yeah.
You know, you just learn something new every day, Jimbo.
Hey, Art, you told me the other day you didn't think we'd get an hour out of you, but we almost did.
So. You did a lot better than most people could.
You know, your dad was one of my dad's heroes, I guess, growing up. And then I think your dad was friends with my granddad. And they were all from Clovis at the time. I know that they really looked up to him a lot. I know that.
Yeah.
That's the only things I got of my dad's that was left there at his old house. They were had a bunch of posters in the trunk. And most everything, and my sister got most of the stuff, rightly so. And my wife found these posters, so she just framed them. And I'm here in what we call the office looking at them. They're pretty neat. Here's a deal at Clovis, New Mexico. It says September 1st, 1947. There's Cotton Lee, Carl Arnold, Pete Drum, Gerald Tully. Some of them I can't really make out. Joe Bassett, King Barrett, Bill Wilkerson, Everett Shaw, Toots Mansfield. I mean, that's a pretty good class right there.
Yeah, those old posters are cool. We've got one here in the museum similar to that.
$1,000 entry fees, winner take all.
Yeah.
Wasn't that something?
Yeah. Crazy. That was a lot of money back then.
That was a lot of money back then.
Had to have a sponsor. Those old Cowboys had to have a sponsor.
One of them said sponsored by Bank of Clovis or something like that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I guess that's going to be a wrap then, Jimbo.
Yeah.
Well, we sure appreciate you coming on, sir, today, and we sure appreciate you coming on, and congratulations on your latest Hall of Fame induction.
Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate that, and hope I did you some good.
You did, Art. You did real good. We appreciate it. And Cody, you know what we say? We're just saving history one cowboy at a time.
That's right. Well, everybody be sure and leave us a comment, like it, share it, tell somebody about it. And me and Jimbo, we sure appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
Art, I'll holler at you and let you know when this comes out and how to get it.
Thank you very much. You guys have a good one.
You too.
You too, Art. Catch you later, man.
Bye-bye.
Okay.